Hi there, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Heather Monthi, and in this video, I'm going to share with you my day at NASA JPL in February 2020. So this is a really cool sculpture that is in the main lobby when you first walk into the building that we were in. What this is called the Pulse, and it monitors the heartbeat of deep space exploration. So it reacts to the communications between 30 different interplanetary spacecraft, and so when the light is traveling upward, that signifies uplinks to a spacecraft, and when light is traveling downward, that signifies downlinks back to Earth. And the more activity in the lights means more data are being transmitted. So various times throughout the year, NASA does these events that they call NASA Social. And what they are different events where they invite people who have a social media following and post on social media about STEM, about science, about technology, about space, anything like that. They invite people to come and learn more about what they're doing, and so that we can share it on our own social media. And so I was able to attend one of the events at NASA JPL in Pasadena, California. And so what was really great was because we were able to get an up-close personal look at some of the things that they're doing at JPL. And then we were also able to meet some of the leadership there, some of the scientists there, the engineers there as well, and just ask questions. And it was a really great day. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a couple clips from the actual State of NASA address by NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine.
C2 test stand is in fact the moon. That is the SLS rocket. Core stage complete. We're doing the green run right here at Stennis. That's for you, Representative Palazzo. And we're going to be taking that rocket to the moon when we launch Artemis 1. So thank you all for the great work on all of that activity. Please join me in thanking Rick Gilbrick and his Stennis team for making this amazing event possible. Thank you, Rick. I would also like to thank Eileen Drake and everyone at Aerojet.
Flagship missions that we've been very heavily invested in, that have been very important to us for the last few decades. This includes Mars 2020, which is actually going to start shipping to the Cape tonight. The rover's packed up and we're going to ship it out tonight to March Air Force Base, but then we're going to fly to Florida to Kennedy Space Center. Also continues Europa Clipper. It continues the development, early development of Mars Sample Return. And Mars Sample Return, now these are missions, Europa Clipper, Mars Sample Return, these are missions and programs that we've talked about for decades. These are not just another Mars mission. Mars Sample Return is a campaign that's been top ranked by the Digital Survey for a number of years. It's a mission we've been trying to get going for more than 20 years. So these are spectacular missions. Same with Europa Clipper to explore this ice-covered world of the moon of Jupiter, Europa. That is really a tremendous candidate for life. So these are not just another mission. These are fantastic missions that.
I just want to express my excitement to be here with you on this day. Just like you said, the budget that is out there is very strong, and especially strong for JPL. I mean, the commitment to really take advantage of the tremendous knowledge that's right here in Mars and planetary exploration as part of the Artemis campaign is a commitment that really we haven't seen, and it's manifested here. Mars Sample Return is basically fully funded. If you compare the numbers this year to the previous year, you'd see there's quite a lot of inflow of money coming in there. And you also see that if you look at the budget, there's one mission we haven't talked about yet, which is just a window, kind of a home window behind Mars Sample Return. There's an ice mapper that we're going to start planning on. It's an international and commercial partnership. We're trying to learn how to get new observations to Mars to look for resources. We know, for example, that the Canadians want to build a radar. They actually have the money already to do that. We also need communications assets at the backside of Mars sample return, because of course we expect that some of these rovers are going to continue. We want communications, assets up there, and finally there's other observations we want to do. That's precisely what that ice mapper is about. It's in the planning phase, so we don't have a full launch, associated with it yet. But that's a really important addition, I would say, also pointing to the tremendous strength of this planetary program. Everything Mike said is really important. The one element I'm going to add is, I think what we're seeing across the agency is that JPL in so many places becomes a teacher for other parts of the agency and other units. If you ask in the last 20 years who's actually landed on planetary surfaces, there's very few and far between. And JPL stands, of course, with that head high in that environment. So it's precisely because of that there's elements of that in the budget. It's not so obvious. Hey, we expect JPL's help, but look at Viper. We will count on JPL and their tremendous experience there, as we're teaching others to do some of the things that JPL does if you want in their sleep. We really want JPL at any one point to lean forward and do things that are so tough.
The next stop on our tour was a visit to the In Situ Resource Utilization Laboratory. And this is where they are doing the MOXIE experiment. And what MOXIE is, it is the Mars Oxygen ISRU experiment. And so what MOXIE does is it creates oxygen for humans on Mars. So I'm going to let the lead scientist on this project give an explanation of what MOXIE does and how MOXIE works.
A technology development program that's designed to show that the technologies that we use on Mars to generate oxygen can be one, that they work, and that there's nothing that gets in the way of scaling them up for future use for humans and for fueling rockets on Mars. So how does MOXIE work? MOXIE has it draws in atmospheric gas from Mars. It's got a pump. It's very much like a vacuum pump that you would have in a lab. Actually, we have a very similar vacuum pump sitting on the floor in the lab next door. And it draws in the gas, and it compresses it up to something close to 1 Earth atmosphere. And the reason we do that is because the actual system that does the oxygen conversion is designed to work near 1 atmosphere. So it compresses it up to about 1 Earth atmosphere, and we run it through something called a solid oxide electrolysis stack. We call it a SOXY. And basically what this is it's a high temperature electrolysis system. Electrolysis is something that allows you to, I'll point out in a video. This guy here, this is our electrolysis stack. This is the fundamental unit of new technology that's inside MOXIE. So what is it? You can stick it, you flow in CO2 here, then as it flows, each of these layers is an individual set of channels for gas to flow in, and as it flows across here, it reacts, and you split up the CO2 into carbon monoxide and oxygen, and then the oxygen gets selectively diffused across a barrier and gets separated out that way. So CO2 comes in here, oxygen comes out here, and the waste product, which is a mixture of CO2 and CO, comes out here. This only works at high temperatures. This thing has to be at about 800 degrees Celsius in order for it to function properly. So to put that in perspective, 800 degrees Celsius is almost 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. Aluminum melts at 660 degrees Celsius, so you cannot use normal materials when you build something like this, and we need to heat it up, we need to insulate it to make sure things around us don't get affected by us trying to heat this thing up. And we live inside a rover. The rover doesn't want to see big, hot, glowing 800 degree C things, so we have to make sure that everything in the rover is isolated from what we're doing inside. And then once the oxygen and the CO and CO2 come out of this stack, we run it through some gas sensors. Those are these guys here, and they basically just confirm that yes, we indeed produce oxygen, the right amount of oxygen, it's the right purity level, we don't have any leaks or anything that's causing the oxygen to not be as pure as we hope, and then it just dumps it out the side of the rover, because we're not doing anything useful with the oxygen other than showing that the technology works. Our goal is show that it works, pave the way for a future larger scale, larger MOXIE, if you will, and hopefully that will come in the next years, decades possibly. And so just for some general scaling, people often ask, well, how much oxygen does it produce? The answer is not very much. It produces nominally about 6 grams an hour of oxygen, but if the stars align and the environmental conditions are right on Mars, we can generate probably about 10 grams an hour of oxygen. To put that in context, 10 grams an hour of oxygen is about half of what a sleeping human needs. So you're not going to be keeping people alive with MOXIE, but maybe a small dog. And then looking to the future in for long-term use for human exploration, you would want to scale up MOXIE by about a factor of 200 or so. And so this can generate 10 grams an hour of oxygen. You'd want something that could generate 2 kilograms an hour of oxygen, so that in one, you guys might know that we can basically, it's most energetically favorable to launch missions to Mars every 26 months due to how our orbits work. And so what you would want to do is you'd want to, in one cycle, send an oxygen plant to Mars, have it operate autonomously for 26 months, and generate oxygen and fill up a tank, and then the next cycle you'd send humans who could then use that oxygen and then use it to fuel their rockets to come home. So,
the next stop in the tour was what is often called the Mars Yard. It is the ISIL, the In Situ Instrument Laboratory. And here in this area, they have real models of the different rovers that are up on Mars. And so when they're doing things like testing software and testing fixes that they need to put onto the rover, they will test it first on Earth before they implement it on Mars. And so I'm going to let the woman who is sharing with us what is happening in this area give you an explanation.
On the arm, it's in its stowed position, but if you look closely at the end of the arm by the scoop, there's a little claw-looking device that has 5 little fingers that actually, when it's deployed, comes down and kind of hangs. And what we did was we captured each instrument on the deck of the lander, lifted it up, swung it around in front of the lander, and then set it down on the Martian surface. And to do this, we had to practice many, many times because we weren't sure where we were going to land on Mars. We knew the general region, but we didn't know if we were going to land on a hill, if we land in a flat area. And so for about a year before launch, we tested very many different scenarios. So we tilted the lander, we pitched it, we rolled it, and we tilted the surface in front of the lander, we tilted and rolled it, and we made sure that we could always deploy the instruments off the deck onto the surface no matter what situation we found ourselves in.
Fun fact, those dots and lines on those tires, that's JPL in Morse code. Our next stop on the tour was the Mars Science Laboratory project, and this is where they are doing some robotics work so that the scientists can gather samples from Mars and return them to Earth for examination. And I'm going to let the guys that were working in this area give an explanation of what they're doing in this
and
spot.
catching the tube, is that correct? Yes? Okay, so I'm going to start then where their story leads off, which is with one of these, which is a Mars sample return tube, and it starts on the ground in a depot on the surface of Mars, and you can see we've got one of these mocked up here behind me. So Mars sample return is, the remainder of it is composed of 2 missions that follow after 2020, a sample retrieval lander and an Earth return orbiter, both of which will launch in 2026. So I'll talk first about the lander. So the lander will land on Mars in around 2028, and it will carry with it 3 key payload elements. The first is a sample fetch rover, which is a small rover that will be built by the European Space Agency. The second is a Mars ascent vehicle, which is a rocket that you launch from the surface of Mars. And you can see over there on this wall a full-size printout. It's about 9 feet long. It's pretty big. And the third element is a sample transfer arm, which you can see mocked up behind me in this lab, that's used for transferring the tubes from the fetch rover and into the Mars ascent vehicle. Once the lander lands on the surface, the rover will drive over to where the tubes are on the surface, and then pick them up and load them into a rack on the rover. And you can see the rack, it's the plastic thing on the left side of the rover over there. Once it's loaded all the tubes from the ground into the rack, drives back to the lander. Once at the lander, the arm will grab the tubes from the rover's rack, and insert them into the sample container that's in the front of the rocket. And I have here a replica of the sample container that's in the front of the rocket, and the arm will put the tubes into the sample container just like that, but many more times than I'll show you. So once all the tubes are loaded, you take the lid and you put the lid on top of the container just like this. I'm not going to close it because it only goes one way. Once it's closed, then you're ready to launch the rocket. So once you launch the rocket into space, then it will jettison the container, which when it's all closed together has generally this shape to it, and it will be ready for the orbiter to capture it. So while all of this has been going on, the orbiter also launched in 2026 and has been making its way towards Mars. So it'll get into Mars orbit in about 2027, and then it'll use its electric propulsion system to spiral down to a low Mars orbit such that it'll be there in time for the lander's entry, descent, and landing, and so that will provide communication for the entire surface mission. Once the MAV launches, the orbiter will observe the launch, and then it will fly out towards the container in space, and it will then fly this container into a basket that's on the orbiter, and then capture it. Once it's captured, it'll go through a containment process, which ensures that it's well protected for its journey back to Earth, and then put it into a capsule, like the one that you saw in the video this morning that Administrator Bridenstine showed, for the entry back at Earth in 2031. So that's MSR in a nutshell. I'm going to turn it over to Eric, who's going to talk a little bit more through what's going on in this lab space. Take it away, Eric.
Hi, my name is Eric Kulczewski. I'm the robotics lead for the SRL portion of the MSR mission. And so this here is the Mars Sample Transfer Test Bed. And so what we're doing here in this lab is we're looking at the robotic elements of returning these tubes, and we're doing work to develop technology and reduce risk for this. So some of the things we're looking at is machine vision to find the tubes on the surface of Mars. We're looking at finding the tubes directly. We're looking at, and we look at rocks around the tubes. These tubes are slightly occluded or covered with dirt, sand on Mars. And we're looking at how do we interact, grabbing tubes from a fetch rover. Everything we've done on Mars before this, we have found something interesting on Mars, and we've gone to scratch the surface and take a sample. We've never had to grab something from a specific place. We've never had to take something from another landing asset and put it somewhere else. Part of the other challenges of this is that we're manipulating tubes and doing work at a level of precision that's an order of magnitude finer than we've ever done with NanoCell and Mars 2020. And so, essentially, for the last 5 years or so, we've got our team members in the back there from mechanical, machine vision, robotics control software. We've all been working on this for years to try to develop technologies that helps convince everyone that at least for this portion of the Mars Sample Return mission, we have the technology to get that part done, and Austin handles the rest of it. You want to talk about the wheel right now?
Sure, I can do that. So I have a prototype here of one of the sample fetch rover wheels, which is being provided by the Glenn Research Center. So this is a new type of wheel that has not been flown on Mars before. It's called a spring tire, and it consists of many springs woven together. And unlike the wheels for Mars 2020, these wheels are compliant. You can squish them like rubber tires on Earth. And they're very durable because they're made out of a shape memory alloy that behaves very well at Mars temperature. So if you want, you can come up and press on this later. It's fun. I do it all the time. What else do you want to know? Ask me anything.
The actual sample containers themselves, how was that size and form factor decided on so far in advance of actually trying to put anything to them?
So I'll let you talk about this one. This was many years of your life.
All right.
How did that become the standard, basically?
So the sample tube here was designed for the Mars 2020 mission. This tube, when it's what it has to do to collect the sample, goes through the drilling process, collecting a rock core. It goes through getting look at a vision workstation, getting a seal dispensed to it, activating a seal, and so a lot of this tube was designed for that. And so the future mission, we have to take what was designed for that, and we have to be able to accommodate the design around it. So this is one interface that we've had a little bit of input on, but for the most part, we've been working to what has been designed by Mars 2020.
So is it a solid core sample or is it pulverized? What's actually?
They can take regular samples. They can take core samples as well. It fits for both.
How much does it hold?
8 centimeters?
Yeah, I mean it's something like I think it's something like 80 millimeters of samples. That's the highest rock core they could have in there.
And that corresponds with the actual drill size that's on the 2020 sample.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are in the bit while the drilling is happening, so they drill the cores right into these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're actually eccentric, so they do a core break
Break
off
the
and they
core
twist
off.
the core up.
Yep. Next question.
Our next stop was the spacecraft assembly facility, as you can see there. And in this spot, what we were able to see was essentially the clean room where the Mars 2020 rover was being assembled and put together to send off to Kennedy for launch in February of 2021. The Mars 2020 rover was actually packaged up and ready for shipment the day before we got there, so we weren't able to actually see the actual Mars 2020 rover, but we were able to see the facility that they used to put it together and package it up. So the way this observation deck worked for this space, I was way down at one end, and the director for this area, she was speaking. I really couldn't hear exactly what she was saying though. So I got some good videos and some good pictures for you guys to enjoy. Our final stop for the day was the Space Flight Operations Facility, or what is known as Mission Control. And this is a spot where essentially they're calling it the center of the universe, and you will hear an explanation for that, and I think it makes complete sense. But this is a spot where you probably have seen on media and on news broadcasts, and this is where all of the different spacecraft communicate essentially with Earth. And all of the Mars missions have been controlled from here. There are 24/7 controllers here. The International Space Station has had people in there for a long time, so they've got constant contact. So they constantly have people in here. One thing I thought was very interesting to learn was that the person who is in control of or in charge of the communications with any spacecraft on Mars, the Martian day is actually 40 minutes longer than ours here in the United States. So this person comes in to work 40 minutes later every single day. So it's sort of a 3-week rotation based on the Martian day. So I thought that was pretty cool.
As part of the race to the moon. 1961, President Kennedy made his famous speech, challenged the American people to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. We all know that speech. This building was built in response. The building opened in 1964, and JPL co-located the spacecraft operations into this building. Specifically, this room to perform our task in the race to the moon. And JPL's task was literally proof of concept. We had to prove you could safely land on the surface of the moon using a robotic spacecraft. That's what we do prior to putting a human life at risk, the Apollo astronauts. So the first moon landing in the United States was operated from this room in 1966. It was an unmanned lunar lander named Surveyor. Surveyor 1, we like ones, that means we got it right the first time. That didn't happen a lot for us in the 1960s. In fact, there were so many failures in the 1960s, we started our own tradition because of our failures that we call the Lucky Peanuts, that we've been practicing for 55 years now. So we got this pretty cool slideshow going on up here in the upper left. I don't take pictures of the guests, just the peanuts. And it's kind of a cool thing we do around here. And we'll get back to the center of the universe. So over the next couple of years there, we operated a total of 5 Surveyor landers successfully from this room prior to the 1969 landing by Neil Armstrong. So that's all that. The way we use the room today, the front half of the room in front of us here, we have a minimum of 5 engineers, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, since 1964. That's 55 years of uninterrupted operations. They're performing the same task today that they were in 1964, which is monitor and control, not of Doug, but that large antenna behind Doug, that we call the Deep Space Network. And not a Cinderella's castle, obviously. We're attempting to show the scale of our large 70-meter diameter antenna here that we call the Deep Space Network. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the Deep Space Network, but simply stated, the Deep Space Network are the ground-based antenna that we capture data from spacecraft that travel beyond the moon, outside the lunar orbit. To perform that task, we have the antenna at 3 locations around the world. We're going to jump to the next screen, a little animated antenna. This is a real-time schedule. If you look down the left-hand column, you can see the antenna located in Madrid, Spain. Down at the bottom is Canberra, Australia, and here in Southern California, a place called Goldstone. Goldstone is about 60 miles north of Barstow, California, on the 401 U.S. Army tank training facility. You can't go there, that's why they didn't know where it was. At each of the 3 locations, we have one of our 70-meter antenna, like the photograph. That's the 3 down the left-hand column. Looks like we're using one. And there are 3 34-meter antenna in each location. The acronyms you see at the top of the antenna, those are the spacecraft we're communicating with. This is real time, so in this room right now, if I'm doing that Chandra. And then down in Canberra, we've got Voyager 2, the oldest spacecraft in the NASA fleet. We've been capturing data from Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 in this room every day for the past 42 years. Voyager 1, the furthest man-made object from Earth. Voyager 2, the second furthest man-made object from Earth. And then we've got a lot of Mars going on. We've got 4 orbiters, Mars Odyssey, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, Maven, and the Trace Gas Orbiter, all sending data into this room as we speak. So the engineers in front of us are responsible for monitoring and maintaining that data flow. Judo's coming up. He sure is. How about that? So, they're responsible for monitoring and maintaining the data flow. Today, NASA has 18 spacecraft in deep space or outside the lunar orbit. We also capture the data for every foreign space agency. All of them. So they monitor that data flow from all those flying spacecraft, and when I say flying in this context, that includes the Mars rover and the Mars lander. The data flows through our 12 ground-based antenna. All of that data, 24/7 since 1964, has been delivered to this room. That's why we call it the center of the universe. So what do you think about that? Much less arrogant than it was 5 minutes ago? Okay, now I'm going to get you the rest of it, because this is a cool thing. My father worked in this room for over 30 years of his career here at JPL. First time I came in this room, I was 8 years old. When I was about 15, unrelated to any of this, he told me that cool things happen out of a moment of brilliance and a smart aleck. He did not say aleck. Well, this right here is not brilliance. Here's our brilliance up here under the screens. Charles Alachi. How many are familiar with Dr. Charles Alachi? That's you, of course. Charles is the former director of JPL. Our current director has been with us almost 4 years now. Prior to that, Charles was the director for 15 years, JPL employee for 46 years, started here as an intern. He did not retire. He just went back to Caltech to continue his research. But Charles hired me in this room 7 years ago doing a tour. I do the tours for the director's office. So if the director were to attend the tour with the guest, usually kings and queens and presidents of countries, that level of dignitary. The people I should not be seen by those people. Actually, that's a pretty big list. So Charles was in here one day and he looked up at the same schedule we're looking at and he got a little excited. And he just said, wow, we're getting data from Jupiter and Saturn and Mars and Pluto and outside of our solar system, and it's coming to us from our 3 locations around the world. Oh my gosh, this must be the center of the universe. Dead silence in the room. Did you really say that? And I thought about it for a few days, and I realized, without a doubt, Dr. Alachi is the most intelligent human being I've ever met in my life. One of those things you'll never know, and it doesn't even matter. PhD, 4 master's degrees. He speaks over a dozen foreign languages. He's written over 500 technical papers. He invented synthetic aperture radar. Without a doubt, he is the radar expert of this world. The most humble, nicest man ever. No brilliance here, he said it. Must be true. So I made it so. Aha, then I made stickers. That makes it true. Here's the cool part. We have now had 16 marriage proposals at the center of the universe. Welcome to Nerdvana. So So now that we've got all data from deep space in this room, we actually operate some of our spacecraft from this room. Mission control. So the back half where we're standing is a tiny fraction of mission control. The actual mission controllers we call ACEs, and ACEs are the ones that command the spacecraft. From this console to my left is where we commanded our Cassini spacecraft at Phillips End on September 15, 2017. Cassini was running out of fuel at Saturn. While we still had control of the vehicle, we flew it into Saturn, the large gas giant, kind of create our own little meteor to dispose of the spacecraft, what we call planetary protection. We do all of our critical events live on television here at JPL. From that room to your left, you might recognize in the past 20 years. This one we called the Cassini Grand Finale, and we won our first Emmy Award for that presentation. And yes, I did say first. The console behind us where Stephanie is standing is where we commanded the Mars rover Opportunity for 15 years. Opportunity, one of the twin rovers from 2004, the solar-powered rovers, Spirit and Opportunity. We operated Spirit for a little over 7 years, Opportunity for 15 years. A 90-day mission, expected to last 3 months on the surface of Mars. We operated for 15 years from that console. Huge Martian dust storm a year ago in June covered the entire surface of the planet, including our solar-powered rover. Unable to communicate, which we attempted for every day for 7 months unsuccessfully. The NASA administrator came out a year ago in February. We sent a ceremonial last command, and then he declared end of mission that night, which is pretty cool. This console right here is where we command the Mars rover Curiosity. Every command that's gone to Curiosity in the past 7 years has been sent right where it says the Curiosity Ace right there. We command this rover every day at 10:30 a.m. Martian time, approximately. The reason for that, that's the model we use. That's when there's maximum sun on the solar panels of the solar-powered rover, and we just like to do our communication when the rover's awake in the daylight hours.
Except for Curiosity has an RTG.
Yeah, well, and it's not nuclear power. Yeah, it is nuclear power. We don't need that solar power, but it's still why we do it. We want maximum sun. Yeah, it's tradition as well. Sad part about that is, I'm sure you're aware, a Martian day is longer than an Earth day, about 24 hours and 40 minutes. So to be here at 10:30 a.m. Martian time every day, our Mars aces actually stay on Mars time. They come to work 40 minutes later every day. We've actually had one ace that's been doing that for 17 years now. Did all of Opportunities now on Curiosity.
Just rocking around the clock.
Rocking around the clock every 3 weeks. He's also one of the underachievers, I call him here at JPL. He's also a mathematics professor at Cal Poly Pomona, a 5th degree black belt in Taekwondo, a Taekwondo instructor, and a bouncer in a bar. Upstairs, I believe the most important room at JPL, that's our public viewing gallery. A team here at JPL provides public tours Monday through Friday, free public tours. Anywhere between 6 and 10 tours up there every day. Extremely important. We let the public know we are good stewards of their taxpayer dollar. And you. We work for you. We do make history in this room. There's a story to tell. That's where they tell our story. And I'm sure you've recognized it, but the room to your left, the large American flag, that is our critical events room here at JPL. Every critical event in deep space has been operated from that room for the past 20 years, all of them live on television.
What classifies critical event?
Orbit insertions, landings, things like that. The last 5 Mars landings have been operated from that room. Fun fact, there have only been 8 Mars landings in the history of planet Earth. It's only happened 8 times. The last 5 operated from that room. All 8 operated from this building. Never happened anywhere else.
So save the date, Mars 2020, set to touch down February 18th, 2021. And that's where the show will be. And Linda and I will be moderating some live chats. We'll be streaming live on NASA television, nasa.gov/live, Periscope, YouTube, Facebook, and whatever else is out there in 2021.
So that was essentially my day at NASA JPL. It was a quick day. It was a lot of fun. I really hope that I'm able to do some more NASA social events coming up in the future. I would love to be able to attend a launch. That would be fantastic. And so I hope to be able to take you guys with me on that experience. And I appreciate you for taking part in this day with me. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and I can't wait to do another one.